Godzilla is perhaps one of the most beloved classic movie monsters known to the world, which started in a black and white film about the atrocities of nuclear warfare. This Japanese kaiju grew too big for our hearts. And after the sins of the American 1998 adaptation, simply titled Godzilla, Toho, the owners of the franchise, kept our little atomic-breathing standing lizard man exclusively for Japan. But then there was a spark. Enough time had passed, and Toho was willing to play ball with Hollywood again and struck a deal with Legendary Pictures to bring the gorilla whale back to American shores. Fingers crossed, we did well this time. The story of the 2014's Godzilla begins much like the 90s one, where during the opening credits, a story from 1954 unfolds something about Godzilla. We see the US military out in the Pacific Rim doing nuclear tests. I'm actually concerned how often I keep seeing these guys show up in my movies. It's like a lot. And then they reveal a bomb with the image of Godzilla crossed out. As the credits come to a close, we see the beginning of Godzilla breaching the surface before the bomb detonates. Remember, we didn't get to see Godzilla really, and there's a theme. Now we jump to 1999, where we meet two scientists, Ishiro Shirozawa, Vivian Graham, walking through a cave when they discover the floor isn't covered in stalagmites, but the bones of a long-dead kaiju that run for a distance down the cave. Along with this discovery, they find a cocoon, and evidence of a hatched cocoon, nearby. The hatched cocoon has left a trail that blows through the side of the mountain and makes its way to the ocean. Sorry, but my first problem is that no one notices the side of the mountain blowing up and a giant bug monster crawling away into the ocean. Like, that's the end of the world 101 introduction online only course stuff. Back to the story, we know now that there's something on the loose. Also, to note that the two scientists are on edge about this, yet they are still observing. Still, 1999, we are introduced to an American family who lives in Japan, Mom, Sandra, and Dad, Joe Brody, while their only son, Ford, yes, I know, his name is Ford Brody, it's just awful, goes to school like most kids do. On this morning, Joe is upset about some seismic activity he's been reading and eagerly wants to investigate. Once the two arrive at the plant, Joe sends Sandra down with her team to investigate any disturbances deeper into the reactor. Well, there were a few, and all hell broke loose. The earthquake shook up the reactor so badly it began to have a meltdown, which threatened to kill Sandra and her team. Joe runs down to the blast door, the only way for Sandra to get out, hoping to save his wife's life before the inevitable. It, of course, is too late, and Sandra shoves a dying man away from the window to say goodbye to Joe. It's a sad moment, well acted, especially on Bryan Cranston's part. This mishappening is what propels our protagonist forward throughout the film. It's a simple thing to happen, but I find it cool, and there's another theme arriving. Oh, and from Ford's perspective, from his classroom, he knows everything is bad. Now, we cut to modern day 2014. Ford returns home as an adult from active duty in the Navy to his wife Ellie and their little boy Sam. They live in San Francisco. Then, they get a phone call from Japan, where they have learned that Joe has been recently incarcerated for trespassing on private property. Ford, upset, briefly explains to Ellie that his dad is still obsessed with the events of '99, and he feels a need to help his dad. After Ford gets Joe out of jail in Japan, Joe confirms Ford's fears all along. He's obsessed with the events of 1999 and has used his super smart scientific brain to expand and even work with dodgy people over his Radio Shack phone to triangulate the seismic fissures together with specific frequencies. Echolocation is pointed out. Ford tries to talk to his dad out of returning to the scene of the crime, but ultimately learns that like all addicts, they must succumb to their own demise. Ford and Joe trespass into Area Zero of Mom's death, only to be greeted by living plants growing green, bugs thriving, and wild dogs rule the streets. The air is clean, which bolsters Joe's theories into reality. The government was trying to hide something. They are, of course. Immediately caught by the MPs and brought back for questioning, this is where we get the most emotional scene in the film. Bryan Cranston giving it his all.
My wife died here!
Turns out Ichiru and Vivian, the two scientists from before, were dropping eaves, while at the same time the thing they're hiding from the public has reactivated. It's also revealed to Ford and Joe Brody the reason for Susan's death was from a kaiju known as Muto, massive unidentified terrestrial organism. This creature was in a crystalline form until another echolocation signal went off. There is an order to kill the creature in the egg before it hatches, so they shock it with a bunch of electricity. This awakens the creature to reveal its body: 4 limbs for walking, 2 closer to the chest, and a set of wings on its back. Inside its claw, it holds the energy of an EMP, a side effect of eating nuclear waste. This EMP causes havoc, and Joe takes a nasty tumble in the rubble. The scientists and Ford survive, with Joe in critical condition as the winged Muto flies away. Again, we only see small moments of these kaiju. Joe's dying words to his son were to take care of his family. Ford tells the military and the scientists all he could remember from his talks with his father. But after that, Ford leaves, looking for a flight back to San Francisco from Honolulu. This is when the winged Muto from before reappears, and is met by Godzilla, who brought in a tsunami? We don't see much of Godzilla during this fight, but we do get a nice shot of his little stompies. The fight ends after the Muto takes some hits and flies away. Godzilla follows. This, of course, grounds all flights, and Ford must look for another way to get home, so he decides to hitch a ride with the military. A second Muto is discovered after busting out of the side of another mountain, this time in Nevada. How the Muto got there is that the unhatched egg from the beginning was taken back to the US homeland and stored in a facility that houses America's nuclear waste. So basically they took the egg back home and stored it in a nice, safe, damp place to hide until it was ready to hatch. And oh look, a nice, tasty acid breakfast waiting for it. The differences between the Mutos are that the winged one is smaller and can fly, and this one is male, while the newer one is much larger. It does not have wings, but an extra set of limbs. This is the female, and she emits an atmospheric-like EMP around her. This atmospheric EMP is a telltale sign that when all the electricity cuts out around you, she is nearby. The two Mutos have been talking to each other the whole time, and this is what Joe was picking up. As the two Mutos race to meet each other, their rendezvous is in San Francisco, the same city where Ford's wife Ellie and their son live. So why did I just say that line? I bet you think you know where I'm going. Because I've been complaining about shoehorning human plots into monster movies, especially a franchise like Godzilla. It just gets ridiculous and holds down the entire picture. But in the case of Ford Brody, I like it. For what little you could do to help better a human element into a story like this, Ford's journey with the kaiju is a neat one. The kid has an overarching theme. If you think about it, when he is a child, his mom dies from the first Muto. Years later, his father can't get over it, and together they discover kaijus exist. Dad tells Ford, save your family. Dad dies from the same Muto. Ford is trying to get home where all 3 monsters are going to duke it out, and Ford will eventually be a player on the field because his whole life was building up to this moment, fighting the monsters who took his childhood away from him. Yeah, it's not the greatest storyline of all time. I never daydreamed I would be fighting side by side with a gun next to Godzilla, but somebody wrote this script. The Muto's designs are unique enough to stand out in Godzilla's rogue gallery, especially with these triangular heads and mouths. So the one thing that stands out are the eyes. Everything about this creature tells me they're insect inspired, but when you get to those eyes, the way they glow, they have no pupils. It looks like a windshield, like maybe there's little men inside and they're just mechs. They aren't. I was just trying to describe how I feel when I'm looking at them. The coolest part is that there are 2 of them, a male and a female, and the whole thing is about procreation. During a night scene with Ford and the military, we get a nice shot of the egg sac the female is carrying. And at some point, the male steals a warhead from the military to bring it back to the female, who accepts it and makes her nest around it. This poses a fun problem for our human characters. The Mutos want nuclear energy, and the humans use this to their advantage to distract them. On the other hand, our beautiful boy, Godzilla, is painstakingly designed to match Toho's design with only a few slight differences. Godzilla's face is based on several different animals such as bears, wolves, and eagles. I'm not too sure about that last one. I definitely see the mammalian inspirations in his grimace, but the bird stuff, I don't know. He is also the tallest at his time, coming in at 355 feet. So he's big and he can emote more with his redesigned face. I really appreciate the work that was done for him. I think the team probably had an easy point to say, let's not make it look like a dinosaur this time. He got an upgraded roar, so you can go deaf while watching it in IMAX, and this one has atomic breath. There's a scene at the beginning of the climax where it's dark and smoky, but then we see these beautiful blue lights accompanied by the purr of energy building up, leading us to Godzilla's mouth blasting blue energy. The biggest gripe about this film is how long it takes before you finally see Godzilla in full action fighting the Mutos, tearing down skyscrapers, destroying the city. On the flip side, Ford and his team's only way to get into the city is to airdrop into it, trudging through the streets to find a buried nest in Chinatown. The last 30 minutes of this film are a climax you want, but you gotta do a slow crawl to get there. Every moment of action was a teaser for what's to come in the third act. A lot of people hate this aspect of the film, but I think it was necessary to help establish a world that's new to Godzilla, how much destruction these monsters cause, and how humans will react. And most interestingly, how they form a bond with Godzilla. He's a hero by the end. I give 2014's Godzilla a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a damn fine start to a new franchise that definitely won't take its time again. Actually, I'm upset. We're getting another Godzilla x Kong movie before we get a third entry, or even a sequel to Skull Island. There's a TV show, Monarch, that's coming out with a second season, but if you're looking for Godzilla, tough luck. I was happy to see this movie for the first time and realize, oh, that's why everybody hates the Matthew Broderick one. It wasn't even close to being a traditional Godzilla movie. I still love the old one, and I immensely care for this one. Godzilla's awesome. Also, the final blow to the female Muto was just badass. So tell me in the comments what you enjoyed, what you didn't like about this film. Thanks for watching. Bye.